Hello everyone. My name is Clifford. If you're seeing my videos for the first time, and thank you to everyone for joining me again today. So today I just decided to take on a very small demo project, just to brush up on my backend skills, specifically my API skills, and also just hoping that it helps someone out there. Specifically because I'll be using Django REST framework to build my API. It's I haven't been seeing a lot of tutorials. Tutorials are very rare that use function-based views for REST framework. Most tutorials are using class-based views. And personally, I like function-based views because I feel like they're more deliberate. I'm gonna show what I mean about that. Like I have more control over the logic of my view, and I think that helps me understand what each and every view does. So we're gonna be building a REST API today. APIs, I think APIs are very helpful in the sense that they help when you want to get like a product out very quickly, and you don't want to have a database for it, because essentially what you can do with an API, you're requesting information from someone else's database. Of course, maybe the question that would arise from that is, well, is that safe? Well, when you're building an API, you can sort of put limits on the information that people can access from a database. So that's never, people never get more than what you want to give them. And then another thing that's really interesting with APIs, really, I can say they're very interesting because they are language agnostic. So I can communicate with my API using JavaScript. I can communicate with my API using Python. I can communicate with my API using Flutter. So now, what does this mean? This means that if, let's say, for example, I have an e-commerce store, and I want to build my web application. So to do that, I'm gonna use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and maybe any other front-end framework. And then I'm gonna be able to communicate with my API, get information from that API, and then show it on my front end. And then let's say as time goes on, I want to make processes in my business a bit more faster and a bit more accessible, because let's face it, people use their phones more than they do desktops, considering a lot of things. One is mobile, one is not. You can use your phone indoors, but then you can also use it outside as well, and you can't do that with a PC, really. So if you want your business to be more accessible to people, you want to build an app for your e-commerce store. Now for that, you're gonna need, let's say for example, you use Xcode for Apple, or you use Flutter for Android. So you see now those are different languages. So now one would think that, okay, since I'm using a different language to build the Android app itself, I'm going to need to rebuild my database again, which is not the case, because as I mentioned, APIs are language agnostic. So even though you're building with a different language now, you can still communicate with the same API. That means you can still consume the same data, which makes sense, because at the end of the day, your mobile app and your desktop web application are talking to the same company, and that company owns only one data. So that's really the thing with APIs. They really they make building software really an ease to a certain extent like that. So now I'm just gonna start. Okay, I was just checking. Okay, I thought I wasn't recording there for a second. I'm just gonna start the project quickly. So what we're gonna be building today is, let's say we're having an online library. So we're gonna be building an API that's gonna be showing the books that we have. Something simple as that. We're just trying to show the logic of using function-based views, and just have more control over the logic of our views. So just to, okay, I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. All right, there you go. Put this down there. Share my screen. All right, hide this. Put myself down there. All right, so I just wanted to touch on this diagram. Again, I touched on it on my Web 3.0 staking app, but today I just want to focus on the Web 2.0 part. So I'm just gonna quickly zoom in there. So the API in Web 2.0 comes in this part here. So it's really the bridge between our front end and our back end. That's really what it is. It handles our CRUD functionality, and I explained in my Web3 video that CRUD functionality is creation of content, reading of content, updating of content, and deletion of content. That's basically a summary of what we do on the internet. So the API would come in between this front end here and the server. Just for a quick visual explanation for those of us who are visual. And then just to start on the project already, I'm just going to fire up my command prompt. Find a folder that I can put my project in. So, create a new folder. I'm going to call it lib API for library API. Sorry. In direction, creating a folder. Now I'm changing my directory. Right. So there's nothing in the directory right now. It's empty. So the first thing that I would like to do is create a virtual environment. So a virtual environment is really useful when we're creating our projects, really, because so what happens with all of these technologies that we use, let's say Django, React, Django REST framework itself, like different versions come out every now and then, and then when a different version comes, it can clash with the syntax of, okay, no, not syntax per se, but like the way of writing your code that you were using before. So now with creating virtual environments is like creating small pockets, dividing your PC into small pockets, and then that environment is only going to be functioning with a certain version of a technology. So you're not installing in your entire system, but then you installing in those small pockets, meaning that those different pockets can have different technologies, different versions of technologies functioning, so that nothing clashes. I hope that makes sense. For example, like let's say let's say you're writing a front-end application using React. You want to create a visual environment for that, because you're going to be using a certain version of React. That means you're going to be using a certain code when you're writing a React, and then that code is only compatible with that version of React. So you can imagine if you install it globally, that means now your entire PC has that version of React. And then if that version, when that version gets old and a new version comes in, you're going to install that version. But then now a version comes with a different way of writing code. So that means now the code that you have is no longer compatible with that version. So that's why you want to separate your PC into smaller pockets of virtual environments. Yeah, I hope that explanation is sufficient enough. So to create my virtual environment, I'm just going to use, let me see, Python. API. I wonder if we can do that. So this command here is Python M. When you execute this command here, at this point Python accepts it's expecting a module which we're going to pass in as the VNV module. So the VNV module takes in a name and then it creates a virtual environment for us. So I'm just going to wait on that to finish quickly. So this is me just creating a smaller pocket in my PC. So in this pocket, only the versions of the technologies that I'm going to install are going to exist in here. And then later on, a time when different versions come on, I'm going to install them in different pockets so that my code is never breaking. It keeps on working. So I'm wondering why this takes so long. It's probably the naming. It probably doesn't want me to name it the same way as my directory. So let me try. Now. It's a bit odd. Could have sworn that's my command, or maybe it did create it. Okay, it did create it. So let me just okay, it didn't give me feedback that it created. Let me try to remove API. Okay, I cannot remove this directory. Okay, it's fine. I'm just gonna look at my lib API there. So I'm gonna go into my lib API. I should have a scripts folder in there. That's my scripts folder. I'm gonna change directory into it. Just get my spelling correct. And then I'm gonna activate. So I know my API is my virtual environment is activated now because of these two parentheses here. So they're showing me the virtual environment I'm currently operating in. So what happens here is anything I'm going to install while I'm operating within this virtual environment is only going to exist within this virtual environment. So this is the point I was trying to make. If there's, for example, Python code that I wrote outside of this environment, maybe using Django 2, if I'm going to install Django 3 here, that Python code is still going to exist peacefully because the Django 3 is only existing in this virtual environment here. I think that's at this point. I hope it's more clear if it wasn't. And then I'm gonna go back. Let me see, and then I'm going to create my Okay, first things first, I need to install Django. So I'm gonna run Django. So I'm gonna be using Django REST framework, so I can really install them both at once. So it's Django REST framework is one word. So I'm installing. So if you want to install one by one, you're just gonna execute pip install Django, and after that execute pip install Django REST framework. But you can also install both of them at one go, like that. Okay, just gonna give that a few seconds. Just get that in full screen. All right, so everything is installed now. We're good. And I'm gonna the framework. So I'm gonna at this point I'm going to execute Django admin start project. So this is my this is the execution. This is the command that we execute to officially start our project. I'm gonna name it project. There we go. So this command here is gonna create like a boilerplate for our project. We're gonna have, I think, the settings file in there, the WSGI file in there, and the ASGI file in there. So those ones are for deploying. Yeah, I haven't really worked with those ones a lot. I just know that they're for deploying. We're going to have a urls.py file in there, and the init file, I guess, because it is a package at the end of the day. So if we just change directory into, okay, so let me just show that project is created. That's our project there. Then I'm going to change directory into my project. And these are the files that I was talking about inside project here. So I forgot that it creates two folders of the same. So now this is our ASGI and WSGI. So this is for, I think, they're helpful when we are deploying. Those are settings.py file. This is just the configuration of our entire app, and our urls.py, and then our init.py here. So this here indicates to us that this is a Python package. A package is a collection of modules, and a module, really, I can say it's a set of predefined functions that help you perform a task. Yeah, I shouldn't get too much into the intricacies just for time's sake. Just but like, for example, like a module would be, like, for example, let's say you have well, in Python we have the math module. So you can call math.sqrt without having defined that function, and then Python will know what to do. So that's an example of a module, because you didn't define that thing, but you're just using it from a pre-existing module, and it's not going to give you an error. It's going to give you an actual answer. So if you call math.sqrt4, it's going to give you a 2. Let me just change my directories. Let me see. All right, I'm just going to go back into project again. So nothing, I'm not changing anything yet right now. I'm just navigating between my folders, and then I'm gonna open my folder in Visual Studio Code. There we go. So we have a project folder, and then we have an inner project folder. This is how Django structures its our project. So this is where we find the files that I told about before. And then what we're going to be doing now is creating apps, because that's how Django is designed. We have the project itself, and then we have apps that are living inside the project. So I think the purpose of this is so that we can plug and play apps across different objects, projects rather. That's how I can put it for now. So we have our project here, and then what I'm going to do now is actually create the app itself. I'm just going to go into my terminal. Let me close these. They're just old terminals. So I'm in here now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to execute a different command to start my project. And then in order to do that, I need to be in the same directory as my manage.py file, which I am. I'm gonna py start app. I'm gonna call my app, let's call it library. And then I'm going to create another app. Then I'm gonna call it. What I did there, I just hit the upward arrow or the bottom arrow. It's just gonna take you through all your commands that you have executed before. For example, if you do this, bring all my commands that I executed. So that's what I did. Bring it to that one. API. So I like creating my API as a separate app, because it has its own files in there. All right. Okay. So now my API is created and my app is created. So close a few tabs. Just save up on our space. All right. Now I can go back to my Visual Studio Code. So I have my library app that's created. So this one has different files as compared to my project app here, just because it's an app. And my API as well, it has similar files to my library, because they're both apps. All right, so the first thing that I would like to do now is just to register my apps. So that's what you need to do when you're working with Python. You need to let it know what apps are available in your project. Then the way you need to do that is we go into our boilerplate folder, that is our project folder, into our configurations, it's our settings, and then come into installed apps here. So the first thing that we're gonna install is our API. So the way you should do that is api.apps, I think, then API config. So this is it's a specific. I'm not making it up. It's a specific way in which you have to structure your code, because Django understands it in this way. So there's a format. It's going to be the name of your app, .apps. So this is always there, and then API config. But then the A is going to have to be capital letter, and your config also going to have to be capital letter. So just to show that again, we have library capital letter. And then so REST framework is it's an app actually, so we need to register that as well. Register that, and then we're going to run our migrations. We're going to run our initial migrations. All right, so to do that, just going to come back to my terminal. I need to be in the same folder as my Python manage.py. So Python manage.py handles a lot of our, it helps us interact with our application from the command line. Excuse me, so shell is not the command I'm looking for. I'm looking for make migrations. So make migrations is really like a preparation, like you are preparing your database for migration. It's similar to adding files when you're working with Git, like preparing it so that it knows what it's going to migrate next. And then so it's saying no changes detected, but there you go. So it was saying no changes detected because we haven't created any models. But then now you would wonder, then how are we having a migration if we're not having any models? So Python has initial migrations that it runs. Let me see if I can find that folder. This migrations here. Let me see. See. Okay, I'm gonna remember where that is, but then it has there's initial migration that we have to run. Oh yes, it's for the pre-installed apps here. So for example, all of these apps here, if you can take maybe admin and auth, for example, and then look at our migrations here. See, we have auth, then we have admin, we have content types, basically all of the pre-created apps, those that we haven't created ourselves. Because remember, the only apps that we created were just these three here. You can just get that back there. So the initial migration is for these pre-installed apps. And then there was no changes detected on our side. All right, so we have installed our apps. So the first thing I would like to do now is actually create first of all, run our server. So we connect to localhost. So this is the URL that we're going to use to connect to our Django app. When we're seeing this message, it shows that everything's looking good so far. We're not having any errors. And then we're going to go back to... Okay, so this is fine now. We're just going to leave it running throughout the entire time. I'm going to go back to my project now and come back to my library. So the models folder, this is where we create our models. That's our database. So I'm going to create, let's say, a book. Let me see. I remember that you need to models.model. So we're creating a book model. So a model really in Django is a representation of a Django is really it's really nice working with Django because it's similar to working with SQL. So a model in Django is equivalent to a table in SQL. So if you have for example, if you have a book, if you were to have a book table in SQL, you would have a row telling you the book ID, the author, the name of the book, and maybe the publication date. So it's a similar thing here. So the fields that I'm going to want to have for my book, I'm going to start with the name, or rather title of the book, and then this is my data type. So this here is going to be synonymous to a column on in SQL, and then this is the type. It's going to be of type character field, and then I have to set a max length property there. So max length is the number of characters I want to take. I'm going to give it 100. So we're going to have book, we can have author, character field as well, with the same type. You just copy and paste the one at the top just to make things a bit more quick. These models, and then let's say I have title, author. Let me see what maybe publication date. Copying and pasting is not going to work because date is of a different data type. So let me say pub date. Pub date, it's not the best of naming variables, pub date, but I think from context you can, since we're talking about a book, you can sort of decipher that pub means publication. But I really like having self-describing variables. But just to keep it short for writing purposes, we're just going to keep it at pub date. Date, make it a date field. So date field takes in a number of arguments. One of them is auto now add to true. So auto now add is helps us not have to worry about entering the date ourselves manually. So it's just gonna enter the date upon us creating a book in our database. So now I talked about a model in Django being similar to a table in SQL, and then SQL has an ID column, but I seem to not have an ID column here. So that's because Django automatically creates your ID column for you upon creating a database instance. So I'm just gonna have that there. So that's gonna be my database, something simple, the title, the author, and the publication date. And then what I'm gonna do now is run a migration for this model. So migration is really me saying I want to save my database. Obviously saving a database is very important, and that's why we need to register our apps to begin with, because we can only migrate models of apps that are registered on our settings file. Probably would have been a good idea to not register my apps and then try to run a migration and then see that error and then try to fix it. But I guess we can just talk about it now. Manage.py make migration. So this should detect that I created a model. There we go. So it's telling me create model book. It's going to be saved in initial.py. So that's going to be our very first migration in our app. Run the official migrate. So it's migrated now. We're good. So I'm just going to go back to running my server. Rather, before I run my server, let me create a book for now. So to create a book, I'm just going to access my shell, and then so my shell, remember, it's in the same folder as my manage.py file, and then in that folder I also have my library app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say library from library.models import, because remember what happens is as much as book is a table in SQL and also in Django, it's still a class in Python. So now what we want to do is we want to import that class. So this is really import syntax. So we're importing a class in this case, and then we want to create a book. So a book is going to be an instance of our class. So let me just say book. So it's going to be book dot it's going to be book. So it's similar to creating an instance of an object in object-oriented programming. I'm going to have book. So my first field is author, title rather. So the order does matter. So let me say 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Author. Let's say it's Peter. That should be fine. Because remember we had 3 fields that we declared in our creation of our model, but then remember the date one, we put it on auto now add to be true. So that means now our date is automatically going to be added in there. So we create an instance of our book, and then to actually have our book in our database, we have to explicitly call the save method. So we're going to have the save method, and then now if we're going to do a query on our book table, so this is similar to select all from book table in SQL. This statement here is similar to that. So it's telling us that we have one object of book, and then just to show that this command here creates a book, let's just create another book. Book, because I had to execute this command before I created a book, so that we can see that we started from 0. So I'm just going to execute it again just to show the addition of a book. So let's call it maybe stock market. Who can be the author? Let's say coming up with names. It's I think it's a weakness of mine. Let's say Mr. X. I do listen to a lot of Malcolm X, but that was not the reason. There we go, and then I'm gonna execute book.save again, and then when I'm gonna make a query in addition of another book. So I have 2 books now. Initially I had 1 book, and then now I have 2 books. So this is me interacting with my database in my shell or my command prompt. But we do have to face that at the end of the day, our users are not going to be using the shell. And also you want to represent your book object in a way that is understandable, or at least in a language that we speak every day. So for that, remember that our book is a class, and we represent how we declare how we represent our instance, our class instance using the string method. So what we're gonna do here, we're just gonna return self.say title b plus. I think that looks good. You can just add a space. Another plus. We are concatenating strings here. So this is how it's going to be represented now. So just to show that, I'm going to go back to, so we're going to need to exit the shell first because that's not saved. Because the book, as we had imported it here, only shows our box in this manner. So we're going to need to import it again, as it's saved in a different way now. Library. Okay, so I said from import. So I guess that's that's one of the effects of using more than one language, because this is JavaScript syntax here. I need to do it the other way around, or rather no, it's not a syntax thing. I'm importing outside of my shell. So let me see. But I think this is still, oh yeah, this is still Python syntax. JavaScript is the other way around. Manage.py. I'm in my shell now. I can execute my Python from library. Import book. And then now to make a query to my book table. See, so we have a different representation now, a better representation of our box. So we have 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and then stock market by Mr. X. I would argue that it looks a bit more appetizing as compared to this representation up here, 1 and 2. At least this speaks to us. Let me see. So from now on, I just wanted to show that part that we have books in our database now, and then I'm just going to exit. So at this point, let me see. I'm just going to. I want to look at my database from my admin panel. So my admin panel is an interface that Django offers us. Just going to need to have my server running first. I interchange between using Py manage.py run server and Python manage.py run server. You can do either one. It works. There we go. My server is now running. I can just check that. Admin. So this is a user interface that it helps us interact with our application from a more nicely looking interface, so to say, as compared to our terminal. Although it's really nice to work from the terminal. Really, it's very fast. Like you can do things in a faster way. I think. me see. So I have my terminal running. So the first thing I'm going to do in order to log in here, I have to create a super user. I'm just going to close my terminal again. Gonna run Python -py. So I'm running it with Python in full now, just to show that the execution works whether you're using Py or Python. Create super user. That's the command that I execute to create super user. So because I've created super user before, I'm just gonna suggest Clifford. I'm gonna leave it at that. I am a hacker's nightmare. I guess you can probably tell that that's my birthday there. So I'm just gonna give it a password. Let me see, just a simple password really. It's okay. I'm not going to be deploying the app, so we're not really concerned with safety. Just going to allow the two take course. Just going to clean up my terminal and then kickstart my server. Now I'm going to go back to my terminal and log in there. It's Clifford with my password, and there we go. So this is essentially what I was doing on my terminal, just in a more aesthetically pleasing way, one would say. So here okay, so I'm not seeing, the only thing that I'm seeing now is users. So these are the default models that come with Django in groups. So I'm not seeing supposed to be seeing my database here, but I'm not seeing that, and that is because there's a step that I need to make, and that is registering my models. So how we register our models is we come to our admin file here, and then we're going to execute that site register my model, which is book. I need to import that. So I'm going to directory import from the models file in the current directory, import like that. So all of these executions that I'm pulling here are available on the Django documentation. Everything is here. For example, the Django REST framework, the documentation, and Django as well, the documentation. Okay, yes, it's suggesting. There we go. So this documentation here, how I'm making the SQL queries or to specific the Django queries to my database, everything is in here. So we're going to be pulling a lot of executions from our REST framework as well. So just to come back to the app itself. So I have my server running now and have to register my book. So I see it on that. I'm just going to give it a quick refresh and I should see my book. So here are my books here. They're showing up now. Stock Market by Mr. X and 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And I'll go in there and you can perform different operations to your database using the admin interface. All right. Yes. All right. we're not going to be using the admin interface a lot, so I'm just going to close that. It's going to come in handy when we're having our API. And then I'm just going to close these as well, just to make up some space. I'm going to leave that there. Right, how are we doing on time? It's going to be a long video. 45 minutes already. All right. Probably gonna have to stop the video at an hour, and then actually let me stop the video now and then start a new recording so that uploading can be easier. Okay, no, it's okay. It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. I was just thinking of uploading this video after then. How the time we're gonna do with that, but it's gonna be fine. So I'm just gonna continue here. With an API, so what we need to do is create our URLs. I'm gonna create my URLs file first, and excuse me. Let me start with let me start with my views rather. So I'm going to be using function-based views for my API. Let's say the first view is get book. Request. So in my request here, I'm going to need to get my Apple book object. So let me just name this get books instead to show all my books. So I'm going to need to first import library. Like that. So that's going to be my view there, and then I'm going to need to return a response, obviously. So for my responses, I'm going to need to import. See, I'm starting with import. I'm thinking of JavaScript right now from REST framework. So I think it's so the response class, it helps us with relaying information into our browser. So it converts Python data into JSON format and JSON format into Python data. So it works both ways. So just to give an example, let's say I want to so what response does, it accepts a Python dictionary. So let's say max as an example, and book. Let's say Lord of the Rings. 300. I'm a fan of 300. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna return a response. Okay. this is my view here. So my view is gonna be executed. This is what I'm gonna show in my on my front end, and then I'm gonna need to create URLs for that. URL. There we go. Completing it for us. Let me say this is books, and I'm gonna import everything I'm gonna use here. Use dot get books. Name this get books. So I'm using functions, and I need to import them first. For example, I'm using the path function. That's why I'm getting an error like this, because it's not defined in my script, and I'm also using views, and it's not defined as well. So I need to import those. I think we find path from HTTP. And then well, my views, it's just there. From so dot says from current directory, import views. So that's fine so far as errors are concerned. It's going to be, so when we go to this endpoint here, we're going to call this function here, and then it's going to respond to us with this response here. And then, but then for that to work first, I need to first register. So the URLs in my apps need to also exist in my settings file. I mean, in my URLs file that's here. And I'll give it a first API, and I have to include it's going to be API dot. So I'm saying essentially saying if my web request starts with API, I want you to go into like the rest of the URL. So let's say it's www domain name, a certain domain name /API. So I'm saying after that, anything that comes after the API, please look for it in my API.urls folder here. And then I'm getting a line under my include, because I need to include import my include. And I think you also find that from the URLs module of Django. So that looks good. And let me see, I think we are good to what could be missing. Okay, I think that's good for now. So we can see what that has for us. Okay, there seems to be some error. HTTP. Okay, maybe I find path from a different. Django dot. Should be my URLs. Where do I find path? Okay, I think this has. Oh, it's Django.url. So I'm just going to refer to this script here. As I can see that you get path from Django.urls. I made a mistake there. It's Django.urls, not HTTP. So HTTP, that's where you find HTTP response, HTTP redirect, HTTP 4.4, and so on. HTTP sort out our error. No module named REST framework responses. Did I register my REST framework? REST framework responses. Okay, so as I said, we have documentation for our Django REST framework. So I'm just gonna confirm that quickly. Let me say response. Quickly find where I let me see. Could have some of those responses. Let me see. Could be response. Don't you remember that? But it can be response. Let me see. Put responses. Okay, let me just Google search that quickly. But it's taking a bit of a while for me. Okay, it is from response. So this is the official documentation. So this is, you know, that you can trust the information here because the official documentation of REST framework. Use, so it is response instead of made a mistake there. And that should sort out our error. Okay, we're good. Our server is up and running again. Just gonna close these. Very helpful, but I'm gonna have to close them. Then here. So I'm gonna need to do API, remember, because we have that initial name. Let me see. The rest of my URL. It is books. Okay, let me look at the error here. Accepted render and not send a response. Let's see, I guess it's my views. Return response. Oh, okay. Okay, I declared book twice. Let me just do, because here I was trying to show that response takes a dictionary. So whatever information that we're going to catch, we're going to need to convert to like a dictionary. And I wanted to mention this because serializers are very key to creating our API, and then I'm going to be talking about that just soon. Let's see. still. Let's set on response. Am I missing something? Because response takes a dictionary and then it gives us, it converts our all right. Okay, I wanted to explain how response works. I wasn't really hoping for it to take away from the time of our video. Let me see. Okay. Let me just, it's probably something I'm missing. Okay. I'm really thinking of if I should really honestly, I don't have to do this. I just wanted to data. I may have created work for myself, but I wanted to make a certain point to show where response is coming from. To show that we're not just using classes and functions randomly. So response. So I'm really wondering why it's not working, because see, data here is a dictionary and it's being passed into response. Let's just check the documentation. So I think the documentation is also going to tell us that response takes a Python dictionary as one of its arguments. The serialized data for the response. Okay, supposed to be serialized, so I guess. But the thing is, even the serialized data of the response is a dictionary. Okay, for maybe I'm gonna remember something for with the duration of the video, because I really don't want to. I was trying to show that we need to convert our data into a dictionary before we pass it on to response, to show the point of serializers. So let me just go back in here, and I'm probably going to remember something as I code along, because really, as much as I want to explain it, I also want this video to be longer, because already it's going to be a long video. So I'm going to bring back response again, but before I bring response, I really wonder why it's not working, but I'll look into it. Let's do this for now. Well, before I'm going to render a response, I need to serialize my book here. So for that, I'm just going to create in my API, and then import if you let's see, I'm gonna need model serializer. So that's the first step. I'm gonna import, and then we're also gonna import decorators. You. Okay. So my serializer basically it's a class that's gonna help me convert my Python data into a dictionary, which I'm then gonna pass into my response class in order to render that as my JSON format. So I'm gonna say call this book serializer. So that's the geez, I'm losing my words now. That's the standard in which we name our serializers. It's going to be your model name and the serializer. Then this is going to inherit from model serializer. And then in here, we're going to have to create. We're going to declare our model, which is book, and so here you can give a list of the fields that you want to serialize. But then for this example, I'm just going to serialize everything. And then it's really not a complicated app. So this is about it, the model serializer. Just as soon as I import my book from get rid of that error there. So that's my serializer there. So now, since I've created my serializer and the purpose of it is to handle my book before I render it out, I'm gonna need to import it here in my views. Book serializer. Okay, actually I didn't need, think about it, I didn't need this decorator here. Now that I remember, I'm gonna need it in my urls.py. No, my views.py rather. I'm just gonna put it down here. I'm gonna explain what API view does. So now that we're here, we're gonna need to also import so what we're going to do is we're going to serialize our books first. Serializer. So this takes in the book itself. And let me set, I'm going to set, actually it's not a let, I have to set this to a menu of true. So what this means is that we are going to be serializing more than one book, because now we are requesting a lot of books here. And then response, let me see, response. data. There we go. So it's working properly. Let me see that endpoint, how it looks like. Jeez. Oh, okay. It's my decorator. I missed something important. So I'm gonna need to declare my decorator. So a decorator is really, it tells us the HTTP methods that we allow for our endpoint. So, but also at the same time, I'm not making HTTP methods. So the error is not coming from the decorator because I'm not making HTTP methods, HTTP requests yet. I'm really wondering where it's coming from. I need to look into my. Okay, there you go. That's a bit odd. It's really odd that it's working now. Let me see if it really was the decorator. Actually, yeah, it must have been the decorator. Because it would make sense if it was the decorator, because okay, unless if it's in the excuse me, it's a bit late at night. All right. Okay, I think it comes with the. Let me see. Just wondering how I might need to do my revision here. I'm just wondering how it's API view is. I'm wondering how it's having an impact, because what API view does is it declares our function and it puts stamps on it that, you know what, we're only going to. Oh, okay, I understand. It's the response. It's the response that requires the API view. It's the response. So the response needs to know the method that our HTTP method. So that needs to be explicit for response object. So that's why it's working now. There we go. So this is our API here. So API really is just our data in JSON format. And then remember when I mentioned that when you're creating our database tables, our models, we don't include our ID because Python automatically adds them for us. And here we have them here. So that's the first endpoint of our API. And then we're gonna work on different endpoints now. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna define all of the endpoints at once. And then go back to my URLs just to make it a bit quicker. Now I'm gonna be getting a specific book. I did mention that these queries are available on the Django documentation. This is how we make queries in Django. ID. I'm gonna pass in an ID. I'm gonna use the get method. Excuse me, because I'm looking for a specific book and not all the books. And then the same thing I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna say my data books realizer. this time around, I'm gonna put my main to false because I'm only serializing one book. And then I think, okay. I'm gonna make this a get as well. So we're gonna be sending a get request to this function here. I'm gonna run. Need to check that my serialized data is valid first, but honestly, we're not going to be testing it that far. Okay, and then so this is get book here. You know what? Actually, let me just do them with URLs just so we see how everything works together. I'm gonna create a path with books, but then now since we are looking for a specific book, we're gonna have to the book that we want, and we can do that by referring to its ID. This is the function that we are executing. All right, there we go. All right. So this should give us, if we're gonna go to books/1, it should give us the first book. And there we go, we're getting 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Then we go to book, and there we go, we have the stock market. So our get is fine. And then what we need to do now, because we are covering only one part of CRUD now, that is the reading. So we need but now that is we need to create content now. All right, so I'm gonna see. So we're gonna be receiving data from our front end. So it's gonna be coming from the request data. So this is gonna be our data there. And then what we're gonna want to do, we're gonna want to serialize it, because remember, in our database, we're saving Python data types. So that's why we need to serialize the data that's coming from our front end, because it's of a different type. So I'm just gonna serialize the data. This is where we're going to be checking. Data is actually fine. So you know when in SQL we can have like a bad request, or we can have like different errors. We can either someone can insert like a number on a string field, or insert the wrong field name, let's say they're supposed to insert cell phone and then enter a number, but then they actually insert cell. So that's going to be a bad request because we don't have such a field as cell. So that's the is valid share is checking that the data is fine from our front end. But save it. If that's fine, I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm not going to handle any errors for this app here. And then serialized. So this method is going to allow us to create a new book from our front end, and it allows a post request. Let me see for URLs. Book. Let me see. Give it a path of books /create. There we go. So that means now I'm going to be, if I go to books /create, I'm going to be expecting to make a post request. So as it's saying here that method get is not allowed. That's because we declared here that we're only allowing a post request. So we're just going to try to create a book there. So now we have to enter this in JSON format. So that's going to be, I think that's the title goes first. Title, let's say, it's a nice book. Let's say, what add? Title, and then now Robert Kiyosaki. No. Post it. Data keyword argument was passed. Okay, I didn't put in my data. It's supposed to be that. I had to pass in my data keyword. Oh, there we go. We see, yeah, it didn't go through, of course. Go to book /create. Add like that. So we're going to create. So there we go. We have a new book in our database now. If we're going to go back to books, we have an additional book now. So far we're just making requests with JSON, which is what we're talking about. Like JSON is something that is understood by all languages. So that's why we can work with APIs using any language. Let me see how we're doing with time. 1 hour 25. All right. we should wrap up very quickly. So now I'm just going to handle the Now, if we're updating our book, then we need to know what book we're updating. So we're going to pass in an ID in there as well. And then we're going to go and fetch and then what we're going to need to do now is that's data. Let me see. So we're gonna pass in an instance here, and then so the book serializer, it also takes in an instance variable argument. So that's the information from our database, and then the data, because remember, when we're updating something, that means we're acknowledging that there's old information and we want to update with new information. So that data is going to be the requested data. Then we're going to pass it to our data argument there. And then we want to screen that if this is going to be checking that the information is corresponding, that the information that was sent is of the same categories as the information that was existing before. If that's the case, which is going to be checked by this step here, we're going to save our data in our database, and then return a response. So we return a response just so we see what we've just created. Data. There we go. So let's try our. We have an endpoint first. URLs book. Create an endpoint. Books slash we need to pass ID. So if I'm going to go to this endpoint here, I'm going to be able to update a certain book. Let's say I want to change something about a book. I'm going to go to, let's say I want to change the author here, Mr. X. There we go. So as it's going to say again, get is not allowed. Then it's going to tell you the methods that are allowed, which is put there. So that's going to be title. The same thing. What is the title again? minus the x. Jeez. Okay, so we're just gonna remember that was right. We're just going to go with, I think it was 300. It was 300. Let's go with all right. Let's go with all I need to do is just come up with a random name, and then the author to say let's say it's poems, or something a bit more achievable, like privilege, by Marcus Garvey. So we're gonna do that. So see, we have our ID is still the same, but we have different information now. So that means we updated that information. So now just to, we're gonna update again. Update the title. Wrote the African Lion. Okay, I don't think he wrote this book. I think it was written by someone else. Who's that guy again? Geez, I'm losing my names. Same guy who wrote the Capitalist Nigger. Okay, geez, it's not part of this video. In this Row of the African Lion. Update that, so now we have a different title, and we have Marcus Garvey still remaining there. So that's really how it is. And then we have worked with our update. Now we need to work with our delete. All right. A bit of a long day, I must say. Delete book. Create the delete view here. Okay. We don't just delete a random book, we need a specific ID. So we're gonna go and fetch it from our database. Get ID, and then this is straightforward. We just delete the book, and then it's gone. All right. So So we have our books, we have our endpoint, and we have our function ready. So let's try that. We have books, delete. Let's say book number 3. Okay, I think that was fine. Let's say books number 3. So book number 3 is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Honestly, if I were to delete, yeah, I would go for between the two. Be so hard to delete, but if I were to delete, okay, we didn't return anything for that view because there's nothing to return really. Deleted the like the book is gone. This is just going to be feedback that we deleted it, and then we're just going to need to import this HTTP response from Django.http that I've been seeking this entire time. HTTP response. The book still is gone. Let me see, get books. So you see the book is already gone. It's just that they didn't give us the feedback. So it wasn't really an error. It's a feedback thing for us. So if I were to delete this book here, /2, delete, and then now it's giving me HTTP. Okay, if we can just get that spelling correct. Response. Okay, so the book is still gone. It's just an update thing. So if I were to create a book, book/create, maybe title. Yeah. Remove the book, but let's say welcome Gladwell. Create that book. All right, there's something I did, probably in my typing. Excuse me. Give a title of the name. I mean, it doesn't really matter. There we go. So we have our new book created. We're gonna get our books. Let's say we want to delete it now. There we go. So now we have our feedback telling us that the book is deleted. Repeat just to give a redirect, really going back to books, but either way, they'll be dealing with feedbacks. Now we have only one book. that's really the API. We doing CRUD functionality. Although, let me just look at the time. Okay, I think we can do something because like it's a really, honestly, when we are looking at being RESTful, we want to create a RESTful API. So with it's not it's common practice. It's not really common practice to have different routes like this. Because okay, let me just do this. We have this. So we have get books. We have get books. We have let me see, how can I put it? Because I'm trying to, I think it should be, it's not really RESTful, like we're not really following RESTful practices to make our API RESTful. So, because what usually happens is when we have URLs, you have users, and then with these users here, you can get your users, you can post. That's what you can do with the users with such an endpoint. Like when I'm saying users, I'm saying API /users, and then that's what I mean by users. And then with users /ID, what we can do here, we can put this here is the common practice for having our endpoints. So we'd have API users, we'd have API /users /ID. We would have it like that. Excuse me. But then in our case, we are having, so this is CRUD functionality in its completeness. But then if you can just pay attention here, we're having really only 2 URLs, because with users, we can use users to do a get. So another way in which you can represent this, just for clarity, is you can with this endpoint we can get post, and then let me do this. Get put there. Still need ID there. So this is how our API works with our endpoints. So when we are putting, if we think about it, when we are putting, we want to pass in an ID as well, because we are editing a specific user or book. I don't know why I used users there for some reason, but it can be book really. But you get the point. I think I'm still on the this example. You get the point. It can be any resource that we want to save on our database. So these are the endpoints. These are like the RESTful endpoints here. These are RESTful endpoints. So now, if you think about it, we only having really just two URLs to work with. It's just books and books ID. See? So I think I'm so used to building my APIs like this. I think if we can try to make it such that it's RESTful, such that we have only two APIs like this, rather API endpoints. So what I'm gonna do is let me come back to my URLs here. So what I want to have is I want to have just these two endpoints here, books and books/integer, having it be RESTful. So I'm gonna need to accommodate my views such that they can also accept a post request for this part here, a put request for this part here, and a delete request for this part here. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm trying to remain with just two URLs, and I'm trying to think, because these URLs here, they're not really allowed, because if you think about it, like a person can have different URLs. You can name this create book. It's just going to be, I mean, it's going to work, but with that's the thing with convention. We want to have the same thing because we have a lot of things that work, not necessarily because it hurts, but it's good to make things a bit more quicker. So we're just going to just try to fix this. So now, given that we put in a decorator after every, we put in a decorator that tells us what, and we can access the method. Okay, so given the fact that we put in a decorator that specifies the method that we want to use, this we can say, let me see, if because essentially our function is going to be have access to this array. Our function knows. So if we can just look at the for example, let me see if I do books. Okay, so the allowed options here is saying get. So that means our function knows the HTTP method that we're supposed to receive for it. And obviously we can tell it's being told by our API view here. So that means our function has access to our methods, our HTTP methods that are allowed. Now, and then since we can also have access to the HTTP method that's coming from the front end, the user, we can compare that to the methods that we allow. So if that's equals to get, we want to return a book. So I want to return a book, and then if we want to create a book. So with creating a book, I'm just gonna copy and paste this because really it's the same logic. Sorry about the copy and paste. It's just to I haven't really done this part here, but I mean it should make sense really. I don't see why it can't work, because we're saying So isn't it that we, through our request, we have the method, we have access to the method attribute, and then it tells us the HTTP method that is coming from the front end. And then we're saying if that is equals to get, which is one of our options here, we want to return a book. And then if it's something else, which is going to be post, because any other method is not going to be allowed anyway, we want to create a book, which is the save part here. So I honestly don't see why that wouldn't work. Probably should have just commented it instead of just pasting it like that, but let's try that. Okay, so my create is empty now, so that means if it, okay, let me just comment it out. It's not empty. So now it's empty. So if we successfully create a book, then it would mean that we will have created it through this avenue here. So let's try that. /create. Just books, just books, since we want our thing to be RESTful. I wonder what's happening. Create book, yeah, that was the error. Create books. Okay, I'm gonna need to, because this is, I commented it out, so I'm gonna need to remove it from here just to silence this a bit. Let me see. I'm not going to create books anyway, so that shouldn't matter. I'm not going to book/create API books. API views. Oh, okay. It's loading it, even though I'm not using it. Okay. Okay, so now we are back on. Let's try to create a book. Remember, we're not having create book, and we're also not having it as one of our functions here. So if we successfully create a book, it's going to be through this avenue here. Books. So now the methods that are allowed, okay, it looks good so far because it's saying post and get. Let's create another book. Let's say maybe title, maybe Power of Now. You can just get his spelling correct. I think it's is Argentinian or something. But the spelling is something along those. It's along those lines. Just check my. Double quotes work. I guess I'm just being obsessive right now. Let's try to create the book. Okay, we have the book successfully created, and we only went to this API endpoint here. So I guess our creation is working. And then now let's work with so get book. So now let's do this here. Let's add more. Let's say put delete. So let's say method. So we just basically refactoring our code, just so our API is RESTful. If requested method is get, we're gonna go on with that logic. And then if we're gonna go on with this logic here. Here's our put logic. We don't have to code it again. Let's see, just work on my indentation. Looks a bit clean. And then else. Will be the delete, obviously by default, because we're only allowing 3 methods here. If it's delete, we want to continue with our logic. All right. Okay, so let's try to see how that works. All right, so we are not having. Okay, so we're not even gonna try to go through these URLs here because we don't want to. Okay, but this is still gonna give us an error because even though I'm not executing that function, it just upon recording it, you can see that it's not there, so it's probably an error. Yeah, it's not attribute update book. That's because I commented it out. So we are gonna have to delete. But I mean, its deletion does not mean that the other one is not working. So, all right, let's try to. So now we don't have a delete method, delete book method or update book method. We just have get book and get books, which are served by these URLs here. Only 2 URLs. So if our operations are a success, we did everything through these two avenues. So I think we've tested the, so books here is going to give us everything. And then if we make a post request, we're going to create a book. Then if we give an integer, we can do one of 3 things now. We can either delete, get, put. See, so let's try to okay, before we, okay, we're going to start by editing and then we'll end up with deleting, because if we delete, we're going to need to insert a book again. So let's do number 5. So let's no, it's the title. Title, so let's say, I don't know, Kiyosaki. So we are putting, so since we're putting now, we're just gonna edit the values of our, there we go. So we've put it, so now it's no longer Eckhart Tolle, it's Robert Kiyosaki now. And then we can also, remember, so that was editing, no, rather, yes, that was editing. So another option that we have through this endpoint here with the integer is to get. So if we do that, and we do a get a book, we're gonna get a book, and then because that's the option that we have here, it's the get. And then if we, so we've shown that we can, through this user interface here, the book/ID we can put, because we put Robert K instead of for Eckhart Tolle, and then now we just got a book 0 to 1. And the last thing that we need to do is actually perform a delete function, which is this one here, and then book deleted. So that shows that, okay, now we're just working, we're doing all our CRUD functionalities, creating, reading, updating, and deleting only through two URLs, that is books and books/integer, like that. So the book doesn't exist, that's why we're getting that. Yes, I think that really should give us a basic understanding of APIs and how they work. It was a bit of a long one. Let me see how we're doing at time. And my battery is about to die now. Okay, we are on 2 hours of time. That is quite long. But yes, that's our RESTful API there. Using Django REST framework. I think APIs are really fun. APIs are really fun because you can, I know there's let me see, yfinance. It's really like an API, because you can get, not yfinance, you can get information about the, imagine you're creating, you don't have such an information, but then you create an app that shows let me see, how much like the price of Apple stocks is, or how much it rose by, but you don't have that kind of information. So that's what APIs help us with. And this one here is similar to that. It's actually that yfinance. I really like this API. It gives you different information about the stock market. So yes, that's what APIs do for us. So yes, I think APIs are really interesting, and not a lot of tutorials cover function-based views. So I hope this was really helpful for anyone who bump into this channel. It's not a big channel, but yes, thank you very much for being with me. Just gonna call it the end of the video at this point, and see you in the next video.